Alright guys, thanks for joining me today for this tutorial. Today I'm going to show you how to make this. Alright, so the first thing that we're going to do is go to Composition, New Comp, or you can just do Control-N. I use a lot of hotkeys, they speed up workflow. We're going to name this Text Pre-Comp. Enter. My current settings right now, 1920, 1080p, and 24 FPS. Alright, so once you got that comp made, we're going to do a new text layer, new text, or Control-Alt-Shift-T, which is what I use. Alright, so you're going to write your text on here for the purposes of this. We're going to do first name, and we'll go over here, format it just a little bit. Okay, and then we're going to do another text layer, and we'll call this one last name. Change the size down, make this bold, and drop it right there. So something like that. Doesn't have to be exact. Try your best to line up your edges. So something like that is what we're wanting to do. Probably drop the last name just a little bit. Okay, so once you got that, then comes the fun part. So today's tutorial is going to be using a plugin from Video Copilot called Saber. If you don't have that plugin, go and download it for free. I'll put the link in the video description. It is a fantastic plugin by Andrew Kramer and his team at videocopilot.net. So, new solid, I'm going to call this first name Saber, and we're going to apply the effect. So effects and presets, Saber, Video Copilot Saber. So this is what default Saber looks like. It's pretty cool, it's really fun, does a lot of things. We're going to go to customize core type, text layer, first name. Okay, it looks totally indistinguishable. You can't tell what's going on, that's fine. There's all these presets. This is amazing. Once again, I don't know why he's giving this away for free. So select, go down to thin. Thin is the one we want. Select thin, okay, and we're going to go ahead and dial back the glow intensity. Probably do it a little bit farther back than that. 10%, and then go to white. That's very important. We want to use white for this one. You can make it any color you want. I prefer white. So yeah, let's split the bullet and do 12. Okay, so first name Saber is on, and then you're going to want to do your modes and switches by pressing F4 and do screen. As you can tell, it's laying on top of the text right now, so we can go ahead and turn off the text. So before we do anything else, we're going to duplicate this layer, so Control D, and then change the name to last name Saber, and we're going to go into the customize core and select the last name, and then you can turn off the last name. And as you can see, this one is a little too bold, so what we're going to do is change the core size down to like 0.8, maybe up just a tad. Yep, something like that. That's what you're looking for right there. So this is super cool. It's a super fast, really optimized plugin. And yeah, we're going to animate this. So the first thing we want to do is get the first name to appear. So we can go ahead and shut off last name for now. And first name, this is the cool thing you can do here. So there's this offset that allows you to write on and off your text. Okay, so we're going to start with it at 0, at frame 0. And then we're going to move ahead to, for the sake of simplicity, to 1 second. And then drop another keyframe, change it to 100. So without doing anything, this is what it should look like. It'll write on. That's what you want. Okay. Now we're going to ease these keyframes up to make the animation look a lot more natural. The way you can do that is right click, keyframe assistant, easy ease out on the first one. right click, easy ease in. You can also do Control Shift F9 for out and Shift F9 for in. Speeds that up a little bit. So you can see now the motion is a little smoother, but we are going to go even crazier with this. So, Graph Editor, click that. It's going to pop up with your graph. You can press plus and minus to zoom in. And right now you can see we're at 150% per second. That's how fast it's going to move. So it's ramping and slowing, and we are going to abuse that even more. So we're going to take this little knob and we're going to crank this up just a little bit, and then do the other side. Our goal here is to get close to about 300%. So there we go. And you can kind of tell when you're even by using this grid right here. You want this to be even. So that's that. So now let's play that back. So you can see how it snaps it into place, and that's what we're going for here. It's a very quick, rushed, and then it kind of slows down again at the end. All right, so that's the first part. And then the next part is going to be animating on the last name. So the way we're going to do this, and at first it may not make any sense, and that's totally fine. Let's go ahead and turn the layer back on. We are going to go to the shape tool, the rectangle tool, where you can press Q, and then you're going to draw a box. Just a box. It doesn't have to be red. The color does not matter at all. We just need it to be wide enough and tall enough to cover up what will eventually be last name. So go ahead and do that. And then go over to last name Saber, and then once again press F4, go to Track Matte, Alpha Invert Matte Shape Layer 1. It will disappear. That is what you're wanting. And as you can see, there's a little bit of weird stuff happening. We will fix that, don't worry. So now what we can do is we can move our position of this up, and it disappears, which is great. That's what we want. So move it up until it disappears, and go to frame 13, drop a position, and then go to your frame where the animation ends and go like 5 frames. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can do that by pressing page down, and then drag your position keyframe down right below. So it's going to look like this, and we will obviously be fixing all of the animation. So once again, we're going to do ease in, Shift F9, keyframe, the graph editor, and we want this to be pretty fast. So let's go up to like 600 pixels a second. Okay. So it's going to be really fast, and then it slows down. Okay. Now one thing I am noticing right now, there's a little too much glow on the Saber layer. That can be dialed down by turning down the glow intensity. We actually don't need that much glow on it, to be honest. And really the same is true for this top one as well. So let's turn those down just a little bit. Okay. It's looking better. Yep, that's looking about what we want. So now we want to turn on some motion blur. So motion blur, enable motion blur. Kind of smooths it out. So you turn on motion blur right here. It's like a circle with its repetition, and then the same thing here. And this turns it on for the composition. Okay, that looks great. So now you're wondering, okay, this doesn't really make that much sense when it animates in. There's like this weird glow effect in the beginning. How do we fix that? Good question. So we're going to do that same thing we did earlier with the offset to actually write it on as it's coming in. So end offset, hit that keyframe, and then go forward 1, 2, 3, 4 frames, hit the keyframe. So go back to your first one, set it to 0. We don't want it to appear until it starts dropping down, and then it'll write on. And that will take care in the beginning of that weird artifact we had. Okay, we're getting there. Next thing, shape layer. You see how this has like a hard cutoff point? Let's go to full res. There's like a hard line right here. We can fix that. So select your shape layer, effects and presets, fast box blur. It's the new and improved blur from Adobe, and it actually is GPU accelerated, which is fantastic. Change iterations to 1, it'll give us a little bit more control. And let's do blur radius 10. So what you want to see is, let's go to half. It kind of blurs it out a little bit, which is good. That's what we want. And I actually think this needs to happen faster. So yeah, let's make that happen a little bit faster. Okay. All right. So now you've got this with the right on, and that looks good. Okay, so once you have this completed, we're gonna make our main composition. So new comp, call this main comp, 1080p 24. Drag your text pre-comp in, set the blend mode to screen so it lays on top of everything we do. And now we are going to add a background. We need to kind of liven this up a little bit. So new solid, Control Y, call it Saber, Smoke BG. Yes, Saber, we are going to be using this a lot today. So go ahead and search for Saber, get that in your comp. Once again, in its default form, it just kind of creates a beam of light, which is okay. So for this, we're gonna kind of do some tricks here, and I really like this effect a lot. It takes a little bit of time to set up, but it's actually really painless once you get it going. So select your layer. This is important. Make sure you have your layer selected, and we're gonna use that same rectangle tool from before, except now instead of drawing a shape, it's actually gonna draw a mask. So the trick for this is start it slightly off the edge and slightly below, like this, and drag it on. This can be changed later, so it doesn't have to be perfect the first time. Nothing will happen, which is totally fine. You're just drawing your mask and make sure that it's there. Now in Saber, on that layer, customize core, layer mask, and Saber will automatically see that you have a mask and be like, hey dude, I got you. And so it'll adapt itself and conform to your mask, which is exactly what we want. This is good. The plain form of this is kind of, you know, it's nice. It gives you a nice little kind of beamy gradient, but it could be better. And so we're gonna go ahead and go to these presets, and there are a bunch of them. Try not to get overwhelmed. I still haven't even gone through all of them, and I've been using this since it came out. Go down to tractor beam. Now it may not look like much, and honestly, it's kind of cheesy a little bit when you kind of look at it at first, but trust me, this is great. What we're gonna do is go to a core size, 0.30. We wanna brighten it up a little bit. And then under distortion, under glow distortion, change the wind speed to 1. And just so you guys can see kind of a playback on that. So you can see the smoke is kind of animating in these lines and stuff. That kind of livens it up a little bit and gives it some dimension, which is good. That's what we want. All right, guys. So I know a lot of you are wondering, is this really how this is supposed to look with these edgy lines on the side and everything? And the answer is no, actually. Surprisingly not. We are actually going to letterbox this. It's kind of something I do on a lot of my stuff. So one thing I would recommend is downloading this really handy Dojo toolkit from creativedojo.net. It's free, and it just gives you a lot of really simple setups. So the first one I'm going to do is a letterbox, and it knows all the dimensions that it needs to do to create that letterbox. One little problem I'm seeing right away is that our mask could have been a lot better. We can actually move this Saber mask and get it into place. And basically the trick here is you want just the smoke effect in frame, but not the actual line. So you can get it pretty close once you letterbox your frame. And it kind of tricks the audience a little bit because they have no idea what's behind that letterbox. It's kind of like a curtain, you know? You know, if I take that off, obviously, but when you put it on, and so with that letterbox there, you get a nice smoky effect. And that's what we're going for. So the next part of this, unfortunately for some of you, requires a plugin that does cost money, which I highly recommend. It's called Optical Flares, also by Video Copilot. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and create our Optical Flares BG and place it into our scene. Effects and presets, Optical Flares. And then the default one is just kind of this, you know, little basic shape. I am actually going to cheat here. I use the Pro presets. I bought it. It's worth it. We're gonna get this one called Anti-Fractal. It's in Pro Presets 2. Looks like this. This is GPU accelerated, by the way, which I love. And we're gonna go through, I don't really like this, and I don't like some of the texture there, so we're gonna go through and find the things that I wanna take out. The first one is this multi-iris right here with these triangles. We're gonna go ahead and take those out. And then the next one is this little glow right here. So we'll find it, looks like it was right there. So just kind of this more basic looking flare. Now with optical flares, you can do a lot. And the first thing we want to do is make this a 3D light because we will be using a camera. And then on brightness, we want to change this to 125 and we're going to move it. So move it over on the position and move it up. And there's one particular spot where the flare kind of starts to light the scene. You can see right there, and that's about where we want it. Something like that. Doesn't have to be perfect, but we do want it to cast that nice little grade. We're gonna go ahead and go to the blending mode, change it to add, so that you get this nice little flare on top of everything. We can probably suffer to drop it down just a little bit, and we can raise our center position to get the rest of that flare in frame. Let's go to full res so you guys can kind of see. You can see we have this flare here looking pretty good. Let's actually go back in. I'm not crazy about that little piece of glow. There it is, this guy. Let's take that out. We don't need that. Now, let's do a blur on the flare. So once again, fast box blur. Set this to 5. Very important. Repeat edge pixels. This is super important. Otherwise, you get this really weird bending effect. Turn that on, it goes away. You can see it blurred our flare. Just makes it look a little bit more natural. Okay. Now we're gonna make this right on look a little bit more natural. So go to your text pre-comp. We're gonna use one of my all-time favorite effects, camera lens blur. And this is kind of like a cheating way of creating some nice blurs. It looks fantastic. So the first thing you want to do is go to the front, drop a keyframe, and then move to right about before it finishes. So find your finish frame, back up just a little bit. We're going to drop another keyframe here. So for the first one, change it to 15. For the last one, change it to 1. And the reason I'm not turning it all the way off is a little bit of blur, once again, just kind of helps makes this look a bit more natural. So now you can see it's going to start blurred and come in focus, which gives it this really cool kind of spacey look with that background. Looks fantastic. Okay, so the last thing that we want to do on this tutorial is color correction. So I'm going to do an adjustment layer, put it underneath our letterbox, and go up here, type in curves. General rule, usually in this quadrant right here, crunch your blacks, come up here, boost your highs, and that's going to create a lot of contrast. You can see it kind of creates like a nice little blend. And then you can go into each channel and kind of pick out what you want. So I kind of want this to have a little bit more of a greenish tint. Maybe pull some of the reds. and we're going to boost the blues a little bit more. Okay, you can see that curves here really makes a huge difference for the color correction, which is what we want. Let's go ahead and finally put in a camera. So new camera. I use the 15mm. I've heard that it just makes everything look better. So that's the one we're going to use. 15mm. Your scene is there. So go to the 7-second mark. And we're going to create a null. So layer, new, null object. Make it a 3D null. Parent that to our camera. Go to the position of the null, hit a keyframe. Go to the first, hit a keyframe. Frame 0 and then 7 seconds. And then we're going to take the Z space, the Z position of this. Oh, and also your text pre-comp needs to be 3D. Sorry guys. So make sure your Saber layer is 3D. Otherwise this will not work. So we're going to go to this. We're going to push this forward just a little bit, not too much. Let's do 115. We just want a little bit of motion here. So now it kind of pushes forward, and that looks pretty cool. We like that. So let's say you get to this point like I am, and you're like, you know, not really liking the way the last name looks. That's where pre-comping comes in. So let's go back to our text pre-comp layer. Let's click on last name. I'm using Babus New for my font, and I can update this at any time. I think I kind of want to move this up a little bit. Something like that. I think it needs a little bit of spacing. It's a little cluttered. Maybe not quite that much. So I'm not actually editing the Saber layer. I'm editing the source layer, which is this last name. And you can pretty much move it around as much as you want, change it, and it will update. So I kind of want this to be underneath a little bit. And I think we can move our shape layer down just a hair. Maybe increase the blur just a little bit. We kind of want it to cast almost like a shadow, kind of like some ambient occlusion. So you can see it's gonna kind of cast like a shadow, which looks really cool. So let's make that first name, and let's go ahead and make that bold. I think it'll look a lot better bold. And move it over just a hair. So there you go. Yeah, that looks good. Okay. And honestly, guys, at this point, after you do your CC and final tweaks and stuff, you're actually in a really good spot. You know, I think it looks really good. I like the way it rides on. So, you know, at this point, you're good to render out. And I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Make sure and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I live stream editing and graphics. So I hope you guys will come back and be a repeat customer. Thank you.